This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. All right, guys, we got a special guest on the podcast today, but before we do that, we got a little programming note I need to go over with you guys. So if you're listening to this on time, this week is Saturated 2025 at the Church of 1122 there in Jacksonville and all over Florida. And just like last year, I will be there to interview all of the guests. So if you are in town for Saturated, make sure you come find me, come say howdy. I will be there for every single night of it. So this is how it's going to work for the rest of the week. So this is Tuesday. You got the Tuesday interview. An interview will be released with Joby, me, and that night's speaker the morning after they speak. Okay, so starting tomorrow, Wednesday, there's going to be speakers every night through Saturday, but it's the morning after when they are going to be releasing those episodes of Joby, me, and that person. So you will be getting an interview episode on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this week. There will not be a Forging Table episode on this Sunday for Romans, nor will there be a Tuesday episode next week on the 16th, but there will be a Thursday episode. It's going to be a Thursday interview on the 18th, and then we'll get right back on track with the Forging Table Romans with Matt Chandler starting on the 21st, okay? So hopefully that all made sense to you guys. And in terms of the lineup of speakers for Saturated for this year, we've got Willie Robertson, so that is our guest today. It's his brother, so obviously Willie Robertson of Duck Dynasty fame. We've got John Tyson, a fantastic pastor and author. You've heard me talk about Intentional Father before. Then we got Phil Hopper and Lisa Turkhurst. So those are going to be our lineup of speakers for Saturated, and then that will be the lineup of episodes released here on our platform and the Deepen platform, by the way. And guys, you can catch all of the speeches from all of those people either live through the Church of 1122 website. They're also going to be streaming live on their Facebook. I'm pretty sure it's streaming live on the church's YouTube channel as well. Guys, the show notes for this episode has all those links, and you know how Google works, so I'm sure you can find it. But let's go ahead and get to today's guest. We have a return guest today, and that is Al Robertson. So Al came on the show earlier this year, episode 737, but he is the eldest son of Phil and Mama Kay Robertson. And so it's been a tremendous joy for me to create a relationship with and friendship with the Robertson family. And so every summer for the last, I think this is the 4th or 5th year, I've gone down there, I've stayed with the family, I've spent time with them, broke bread with them, just got to conversate with really the entire family. And then we usually interview them, or I'm on their Unashamed podcast, right? So it's typically been Al, Jace, and Phil, and then me. But obviously, Phil Robertson has since passed away, and so this is the first year I've been down there where Phil was not there. So obviously, there's a tremendous gap that it feels like in terms of going down there, and it was kind of odd being on Unashamed this time with Al and with Jace. And that's what we spend quite a bit of time talking about today, just the legacy of Phil Robertson, the shadow that he has left, but also the benefit of him being a follower of Christ for 50 years. But then in terms of Al, we also talk about he's been on a weight loss journey. He has lost a ton of weight this year. He's just looks incredible. His health is at a place that it's never been. And so we talk about both of those things. But as with any time I get to talk with the Robertsons, on camera, off camera, it was a joy and an absolute treat to do so. So I'm not going to keep him from you any longer. So without further ado, let's get into it. Al Robertson, welcome to your studio. I normally welcome people to mine, but we're in your digs now, your new digs.
It's exactly right. It's the first time you've seen the new, I call it the cigar bar, which you would love, dude, because this looks
I've got
like
them in the truck.
It's smoky, we could have some bourbon in here, some cigars.
We can make that happen. That's super easy to make happen. But so this is the first time that I've been in the new space, because used to just, for everybody in the audience,
and you didn't really know we moved, right?
So I didn't know if y'all remodeled the studio at the shop or if you moved. It makes more sense because this is where all the other family podcasts are here. Exactly. We're at the Duck Commander headquarters, guys, so if you're watching this. But the studio that we would record, whenever I've recorded on previous Unashamed, it was out at Phil's duck shop or whatever.
Which is another 25 miles past here, literally in the middle of nowhere, right?
Well, and the first time, because I think I've been here, 4 or 5 years in a row,
right?
The first time I went out there, I wasn't entirely sure we were going to a studio. I was like, this is basically how horror movies start. It's everyone's
so
kind of
many people
along.
have had that thought. It's crossed their mind that they may be going somewhere to die. It kind of becomes this litmus test.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Well,
are you ready for the crossover?
Well, and then you get to the shop and you're like, there's not a studio here. There's
farm equipment.
Yeah, there's equipment, there's dirt, there's all kinds of different things. But no, I mean, it looks great. We had to rush in here a little bit, but it looks good. It's got a good feel to it. But yeah, I mean, we can put one of those little things that sucks the air or the smoke out or something like that.
Well, I tell Zach, because he likes this look. He his studio's like that in North Carolina. So he was the one who designed it, I guess, with our staff. And they've even had to redo my podcast studio in Gulf Shores to match more with the lighting and all that. So yeah, they like the way this looks. And it is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a nice look. And speaking of looking nice, Al, we are in the same weight class now. So the
first thing you've already ready to roll.
I walked into your house and I was just like, Al, what do you weigh? Because you always got to, size people up. Be all right, are you in my weight class or not? But you have lost a substantial amount of weight this year.
Since I was on your podcast last, probably 75 pounds, maybe something
75
like that.
75 pounds.
So I'm under 200 for the first time in many moons.
Well, you look fantastic. And so there are guys in my audience that maybe could stand to lose a few here or there. And I'm always on them. And it's like, hey, typically it's eat less, move more. It's kind of like the normal thing. But like, take us on your journey, because there's always like, okay, the nuts and bolts of, okay, what did you actually do, which we'll get to. But then there's the actual reality of like, okay, was there like a breaking point? Was someone just like, hey, Al, we're worried? Or did you just wake up one day and you're like, I'm done with this. Like, let's go on a journey.
It's funny because, I mean, you're heavier than you need to be. You're not healthy. And yet you just kind of settle into some place, many people do. And that's what happened to me. So I would say like for a decade, I've just been kind of back and forth, but over. But then I just, once you're 40 pounds over, it's easy then to become 80 pounds over because you're just not paying attention. You're not doing what you need to do. And my health was not good. I'm on this high blood pressure stuff, CPAP machine. And it's funny because Dad was, he tries to be a motivator, but Dad's was a natural encourager more than anything. Most people don't, him well enough to know that, but he's always so straightforward. He'll just tell it like it is. And so he would say, I mean, Al, when you can't get through the door, maybe it's time to, eat a salad.
It's pretty direct.
That was his way of being an encourager. I said, well, Dad, I get it. I need to lose weight. But I made a decision at the end of last year. I was 59. I said, all right, I got to do something. I'm about to be 60. It's a new decade, and I know it's not getting easier. So I came up with this plan, my own marketing plan. I was going to lose 60 by 60. So it was started like last summer. And so my plan was I was going to lose 60 pounds by the time I turned 60, which was January 5th. And so but I realized when I get to Christmas, this is not going to happen. I'd lost a few pounds, but it's just, so Jace they had this running bet thing going with his poker buddies, and, people are betting against me. Jace bets for me because he's convinced I'm going to pull it off. I said, Jace, you're going to lose the money. I said, but I tell you what, double down if you can redo the odds, because I have now decided I'm going to do this. And so in the interim of this, Zach had been approached by these folks at PhD because we're not under Blaze anymore. So we're doing our own ads and kind of solo now with the Unashamed podcast. And so, we're having to find our own ad people. And so one of those was PhD. And so it's a weight loss program. I'd never heard of it before. And so my joke is that they needed a guinea pig, and I was the fattest pig. So I got the gig, So that's my marketing for PhD. And so January the 5th, my last day being the pig, I decided, I'm going to start on my birthday. So, the next day is when I actually started. I fasted and then got into PhD. It's kind of a high protein, low carb, a lot like keto, paleo, the same type diet, but really good. They have like a support system, a coach, all that. So now it's like, well, I'm 60 for a whole year. So I could still 60 by 60 still works for me.
Right.
But it's actually turned into 75 by 60. And so now I'm probably going for another, 5 or 10 pounds to settle into a place where I'll go into maintenance. But my high blood pressure meds cut in half. I just came from the doctor before we did this. So now we're cutting them half again. So I'm basically almost off of that completely. I don't do a CPAP anymore. I sleep great. And what's helped me is like I have a lot of sinus issues and allergy problems, and I have not had anything since I quit the CPAP. So now I realize a lot of that was related to that. I had to have it to sleep, though, and now I don't. So just losing the weight has been a huge gift, huge blessing for me. And so most of the numbers are good. So it's been a good thing. It's something I should have done, a decade ago.
Well, and that's one of the things that whenever I talk to people, because all people reach out to me and they'll just pour their hearts out in the comments or the emails or DMs or whatever. And sometimes it's like, hey, I'm worried about this person.
Yeah.
And what can I say? And there are guys in my life that were really close to me that got really, really big. And then their families would reach out to me to reach out to them to like try to do whatever. But I mean, over the years of trying to help people specifically on their fitness journeys, I'm like, I had convinced myself earlier on in life that I could want it for both of us.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so like I could want it for them and I could basically do it for them. But like you can't force somebody into something that they don't want to do, especially when it comes to a discipline that comes up every day.
Yeah.
Because there are things that you can just do once, you've licked it and you're good to go.
Right.
But like this is something like the way I say it, I was like the bill comes due every morning.
Right.
Like when it comes to your fitness, when it comes to your diet. And so you can take a day off, right? From lifting, you can take a day off from your normal diet, but a day turns into a week, turns into a month, and then it turns into being very, very unhealthy.
Right.
And I just, you can see what life was like before and you can see where it is now. And so you have this, built-in like stamina to where it's like, okay, I can do this. I've seen myself do this and I don't want to go back to the way things were before.
And it naturally builds on itself because obviously I wasn't doing anything to stay fit as well because then I'm lackluster and lazy.
You don't
and
feel good
I don't
when
feel
you're doing
good.
it, yeah.
And so as that weight came off, because the interesting thing about the diet, this particular diet is, they always encourage fitness and wellness is the way they put it, but that's not part of the diet. I mean, it's strictly a diet to lose the weight, but they encourage you to walk or whatever, work out or whatever you're going to do. And so they said, as you feel better, do more. And so I kind of like that because it was open-ended. So I was able, but they were right. As I got to feeling better, I wanted to exercise, And so now I've begun doing a little bit light lifting in terms of dumbbells and stuff like that. Just now that I've uncovered, the old owl, I'm trying to tone it up. So it's naturally made me want to do that more. So, and that, of course, helps, again, health areas, testosterone up, all the things that before were down because of my age too is up and better. So, and I know you preach this a lot because you're fit and it's so good. And you lose your way. And we say the same thing from a spiritual perspective because we don't talk a lot about physical stuff, fitness on our podcast, but it's exactly the same for spiritual matters. I mean, it's discipline. It's waking up every day, especially when there may be something that's a problem for you. The evil one has this way he's been attacking you, to know that I have to have spiritual discipline. I mean, for the same reason. But why we would check out one and not the other, and that's what happens a lot of times, especially guys like me who spend a lot of time in the Word, a lot of time doing spiritual things, and people are very complimentary and they're very, they don't want to hurt my feelings. And so I get that and I appreciate that. But at the same time, a good kick in the pants for the physical side needs to happen because, I mean, I am housing the Holy Spirit of God. I mean, there is a reason for me to be healthy. And so it's been really good for me, but you are exactly right. You as much as you want to try to help people, you can't motivate them any more than they can motivate themselves. And that's for anything.
Well, I talk to people all the time about spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. And most guys, I would say, are not crushing it in any of those categories, but if they are crushing it, it's usually in one, right? So you have the guy that was like the natural athlete. Maybe they played ball in college or something like that. So that's always come easy to them. So they really kind of lean towards the physical resilience side, but maybe they haven't read a book since high school.
Right.
And then you got kind of like, the spiritual warrior guy. They love digging in theology. They love digging into the word and praying for people and all that. But if they had to like sprint from here to the main road, like, to save their lives, like they'd be done for. And that's always the thing that I talk to, because when I'm speaking to a group of guys, which you and I are speaking at the same event next summer down here, which I'm pumped for. But when you talk to these guys, there's something that's going to catch them, right? So my presentation style, I like to leave as many hooks in the water as possible because I don't know what's going to get you.
Right.
But then you have those guys. The easiest thing for me to see is whether you're not physically resilient, right? Because I can see that with my eyes.
Exactly.
It's kind of hard to surmise if someone's spiritually or mentally weak from a resilient standpoint. Like you kind of have to get to know them. You have to talk to them a little bit. You have to see how they respond to like negative stimuli or whatever.
Right.
But on the physical side, it's pretty much visual. Like I can pretty much see it. And then if you come and work out with me and my guys, then we can super duper see it. Right. And it's just one of those things where it's like you try to expose that for your brothers, because I've talked about this before, and we talked about the tight knit community you have down here with your family, but like I lean heavily on the guys around me. And I don't mean like lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend, I'll help you carry on. I mean like I'm leaning on these guys, like I'm digging my elbow into their ribs a little bit, like I'm trying to wear on them a little bit to see how much bend they have in them. Are they going to have an ego reaction? Are they going to get mad and kind of bow up? Are they going to do one of those things? Because all of us are headed for a time period where, relatively speaking, the bullets are going to start flying, things are going to start going wrong, and you need guys around you that will bend and not break. You need guys around you that are going to be able to withstand the flaming arrows of the evil one and things like that. And so having guys around you that are spiritually, mentally, and physically resilient, typically that entry level is, are you physically resilient? Because, you've seen with exercise or anything like that, the moment you stop doing it, it's typically a mental fatigue, not a physical fatigue. Like very, very, very few people push themselves to complete physical exhaustion. And the same thing comes with any personal discipline.
That's right.
Whether you're trying to get in shape, or you're trying to stop looking at pornography, or stop drinking, or whatever these type of sinful proclivities that people have. And people just don't attach it all together. It's like, no, you are one being that chooses to be disciplined in whatever areas you choose to be disciplined in. But most guys are just like, I'm just existing, just kind of amoeba my way through life,
Right. And it happens without really, you just don't think. I mean, you just kind of get into, and then you start making excuses, which is what I did. Well, I travel a lot, and so you can't control that when you're on the road. That's a lie.
Yeah.
Of course you control it. I mean, all you got to do is start controlling it. You decide what you're going to eat. You make better choices. You decide, you take things with you. And so it's just giving attention to something that has to be done. And I have to say, Lisa was great because she was loving to me no matter what, even 75 pounds ago. But she would always, she was that consistent nudge, as your wife can be sometimes, to like want me to do better, but want me to decide to do better. And so she did it just the right way. We were talking about this just the last couple of days, and because you need somebody to encourage you, but at the same time you need somebody to say, hey, how can I help you do this better? And she even joined me on the diet, even though she didn't really have to lose a lot, but she's lost maybe 10 or 15 pounds. But she just did it because it made it easier for me, because now we kind of eat the same food and we do the same thing. Jay, who my son-in-law, is who does jiu-jitsu as well. He's kind of been in this sphere of my diet for a long time because he got in shape boxing first, then now jiu-jitsu. But he does his more through activity, But he still sticks to a fairly similar diet. But he's probably, he's been in good shape for 15 years now, 10 or 15 years. Yeah. And so he just made that same decision. But he, you look back at old pictures and when he first got married, and he was, 50 pounds overweight himself, and so. He's been a good model for me, just to be consistent. So it's really kind of become a family thing. And then ironically, now Mom is living with us, and she's part of the compound, and she's doing really well physically. I mean, like the best she's done probably in a couple of decades at least, post dad. And she's still struggling with some other stuff, but on that side, she's done really well. And I think it's because coming into our sort of compound situation, she's eating healthier, she's doing better. We're not cooking and eating some of the stuff we would have before, and so she's now part of that process, and so it's helped her, and she looks as good as she has in, like I said, a couple of decades.
Well, we'll get to her in just a second, but I mean, if you're following in kind of the same footsteps as Jay, so it's time to get you a gi, right? Like we got to get you a gi, we got to get you on the mats. I mean, this is.
No, Jay,
we can start your journey
Jay
anytime.
is the worst. I don't know about you, Kyle, because I don't see you every day, but Jay is the worst poster person for jiu-jitsu alive because he's always hurt. He's always hurting. He's like, every time he comes in. So I'm like, I respect him. I know he's, really working hard at it, but I'm like, there's no way I spend my life now trying not to get hurt. So that's like one of my major goals.
Well, I don't know of anybody.
I'm never going to roll with you. It's never going to. I told you I tapped out the minute I met you.
No, Al, I've never heard of anyone getting hurt doing jiu-jitsu. I've never even heard of such a thing. Like that's a foreign concept to me. Wow. Like it just never happens. It's a little bit of a rough sport. Golf and walking is a little bit easier for people. But, with your birthday coming up, I was trying to think of what to get you as a gift. And I mean, an Origin gi. made here in America, every stitch made in America and put together by American hands. It just seems to fit.
Are they comfortable to watch baseball in? Because I could have a
now,
baseball
I will tell you,
gi.
they have the Rift.
You know how much I love the Dodgers.
I do. But they have the Rift 2.0 gi. Origin does. I mean, it feels like pajamas, and that's the thing. If you're going to do the sport that I've called Oklahoma struggle cuddles, all you're doing is you're putting on your danger pajamas and you're trying to fold people's pajamas up while they're still wearing them. That's all it is.
I go to the school. I watch usually belt test or when I go, but I go for other things too. Jay is part owner of the school here, and I will say, jiu-jitsu, while not for me, has been great for my family. I watched my granddaughter. And she was always high strung, Jay's youngest.
Right.
And
how old is she, like 11?
She's about 11 now. Yeah. And she was kind of prone. Being the youngest maybe was part of it, but she was, out of the three sisters, she was the most high strung.
Yeah.
And the most prone to fits and, stuff like that. And so she was, they had to really work hard on disciplining her. But since she got into jiu-jitsu at a very young age, I've just seen her personality round into a much calmer person. And so, and I credit that. And so like Jay and Anna, Jay especially being her dad, and plus he gets to spend a lot of time with her, which is important for a dad, especially with daughters. And so he hunts, he has different things he does with each daughter. And with her, it's jiu-jitsu, and she's good at it. And she knows she's good at it, and she works hard. So it's been really good for my family. Also, my grandson-in-law, my oldest that married Carly, he has really gotten into it, and he's good. He's already a blue belt, and he's young enough. He'll probably be pretty good, and because he's willing to put the time in. But it's been good for them because they go every night. It's something they do together. Carly's gotten in much better shape, just rolling and doing the kids' classes and stuff like that. So it's been very good for my family. I'm a super supporter of jiu-jitsu.
Well, the thing is you get your butt kicked so thoroughly and so
Jay
often.
Said. Yeah,
So if you got an ego problem, it's going to shave that off. If you got fits of rage problem, it's going to shave that off too. And it's the only way you can continue training. But to put a bow on the jiu-jitsu thing, so last night, we're not rolling around in the living room after dinner, but I was showing her a version of a north-south. Well, actually, Jay's like, you got to let her put you in her north-south choke. And I'm like, she's an 11-year-old girl, and, it's just like, okay. And she put me in this north-south choke, and I had a little moment of panic because I'm like, oh, she is squeezing the dog out of me right now.
She'll put you down.
I kind of tapped, but then I showed her a couple of different things. I'm like, here, get your dad over here. I'm not gonna let you choke me anymore. Get him over here. But when you do something like that and you see someone, because I've been training longer than her and been doing it a little bit longer, and so I'm showing her a few different things, and she's trying it on her dad, and she's just picking it up, and it spills over into all other areas of life. So, but that's
so we had one last thing. Yesterday I preached, and you were there, and this 8-year-old boy who also does jiu-jitsu training was reading my scripture for me. But he doesn't go to Jay's school; he goes to another school in town. And so I asked him. A lot of times I'll ask him questions. So I asked him in front of this whole church. I said, "How long would it take you to choke me out?" And of course, he wasn't expecting me to ask him anything. And so he kind of paused and he said, "Well."
He's doing the math in his brain.
Yeah, he's thinking, and I thought he was going to give me a number, and he said, "I don't know." And I said, 8 seconds. That's how long it would take you to choke me out. And everybody laughed, and his dad is on the worship team at our church, and so it was a fun moment. But I like I said, I'm a fan. It does folks good. So if you're thinking about it or you're following in Kyle's footsteps, go for it.
Definitely do it. No one ever gets hurt.
Yeah.
But we've mentioned your dad a few times, so this is the first time I've been down here since Phil has passed, and so obviously over the last several months, the family has seen so many tributes pouring in, and you've seen the stuff on social media, and so it's such an interesting thing because when someone passes away that has a large public profile, it almost has a different impact on the family because not only are you getting an outsized amount of attention from a bunch of people that you don't have a personal relationship with, you're still simultaneously having to deal with your own emotions, especially you being the oldest son. You were there for all of the bad days, right? The worst of the worst days, which someone like maybe Jeff doesn't really remember. And so you're dealing with all that. You're dealing with the legacy that he's leaving behind, the tremendous weight of his shadow after he's left. And then, with Mama Kay and different things like, okay, then there's the practicality of like, okay, so what do we do with the podcast studio? Okay, right. Where's Miss Kay going to go, and those types of things. And so just generically, what's it been like for you as, Al's eldest son to just, because you knew your father had a huge impact on people. Like that wasn't news to you,
right?
But I'm sure it was probably a little overwhelming after he passed just to hear like the absolute breadth of his. I
don't know. I'll begin by, and by the way, so over your right shoulder, it can show up on this camera, I'm not sure, is Dad's Bible.
Yeah, right there.
And, which is our reminder that he's, still with us in terms of this discussion in the Bible, which is a cool thing. And in fact, everybody's like, well, who's going to get that Bible? So for now, it's going to just stay here, because it's a reminder. I don't know if you've ever, seen the movie Big Fish.
Yeah.
Have you seen Big Fish?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's a movie, it's a 30-year-old movie. And it's a Tim Burton film. And we were just talking about this recently on our podcast, and Jason never heard of it. And I said, I cry at the end of Big Fish every time I watch it. And I've probably seen it 50 times. I haven't seen it late. I hadn't seen it since Dad crossed over. But the reason it makes me cry at the end is because the movie is about this man who was bigger than life and told big stories, and then his son was kind of alienated from him for a lot of other reasons, but then never believed all the stories his dad told. And so he gets down to the end of his life, and his son is a writer. And so like he makes up like the end story for his dad as he's dying. And it's just, that's the part that gets me every time. And then the fish is involved. And of course, Jace loved that. I said, do they catch a fish? I said, they do. A giant catfish, because the whole story is this man was so big. He was like he was too big of a fish for the pond that he lived in. And that's why I always related it to Dad, because Dad always was a bigger than life personality. He drew people to him, even as a non-Christian, as a non-believer. People wanted to be like him. And so when he ran a bar, everybody showed up. And when he was doing crazy things, the movie, The Blind, showed it a little bit, like, racing horses and cars, and they were all drinking and out in front of the bar. But everybody wanted to be like him. And so he just always had that way about him. As a kid, as his son, he was larger than life for me too. But he was flawed, he's your dad, but at the same time, there were flaws, and you're not sure how to deal with that as a kid. And so I went through a lot of different things myself, and even including my own prodigal wandering, I think, in rebellion somewhat to Dad. But then when we reconnected, it was, such a great journey together, because he was such an encourager. And Dad was always a yes, unless there was a compelling reason for a no. And a lot of parents are just the opposite. They're no unless you can convince me as a yes. And so, but Dad wasn't like that. He was, since he was a dreamer, he liked people that dreamed, including his kids. And so then the last, 15 years of his life, we got to do this. We got to do his show, his online show, and we got to do podcasts together and all this Bible study. And it just became a wonderful blessing for me to get to have that at the end. And so me dealing with the crossover, you're right, it was interesting, because I've really, for the last few years, been more about sort of, protection of Dad, because especially once he started to go down mentally, to like then realizing that, wow, I'm like, we're the next, once he's gone, like we have to keep this going. Like I'm in essence the patriarch of the entire family. I'm the oldest brother. And so there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that. And it made me I said this at his funeral, because we were struggling with how to do that. Like, do we just go totally private, our own thing? Because, and we tried to accomplish both, but we kind of wanted that, because like, how do we grieve Dad as just our dad? And yet at the same time, this large and life personality who has impacted thousands of people. And we had every part of the discussion. Do we do some big thing here at the Civic Center and just have people come and, like Billy Graham did, or, someone like that? Well, no, we didn't really want to do an event. It's our dad's funeral. Like, how do you, so we wound up basically having, we beamed out, decided we would just release the funeral after we did it, so we could have our own time. but then we wanted everybody to know what we said about him. And because Dad was so unique, he probably spoke as much at his funeral as we did about him, because there's so much video that he's done. And so our team here, it's nice to have a production company, but they did a fantastic job to go and pull things that he has said. And a lot of it's out on the internet, but some of it's just stuff they found that I hadn't seen in years. And we just wove that into our discussion. And he talked a lot at his own funeral, which he really wanted to do. He told me, he said, Alan, when I go to meet the Almighty, I want there to be, this is 20 years ago he told me this, but he said, I want there to be TVs lined up out there playing my DVDs, showing what I love to do, and so people can see what I was really all about, show me preaching the gospel. And so I never forgot that. So we were like, how do we work that into this thing to honor him, but also for us to be able to have the moments we need? And so that's what we did. And I mentioned in my part, because Mom immediately said, well, I want all my sons to speak. And so we did that, plus Phyllis and his daughter, because she was a late arrival, but there were some things she wanted to say as well. So we all got a chance to talk, which was great. And one of the things that I said, I was super impacted by Ronald Reagan, his first president I voted for. I was 18 years old, and Reagan got Alzheimer's. And when he did, he kind of eventually had to step back from the limelight. Now by this point, he's in his 80s or 90s. But he wrote a letter where he basically said, I'm riding off into the sunset. He liked to ride horses in California. And it was a very touching, moving letter. He reads it at the library in his own voice, which, again, made me cry when I was there. And I thought, we need to do something like that with Dad, and so I talked to Dad about it. But by the time, we were having this discussion, he was already kind of not as sharp, and it was already beginning to happen. And he said, I don't know about that, Alan. So we didn't do it. But it hit me. I thought, well, Dad doesn't really have to do that. He's not just a public figure. He's a man that has impacted people for eternity. And then it hit me. I was like, we're the letter. I'm the letter. Anybody that's been impacted by Dad in any way is the letter. Because as you live your life, the people that coached you and mentored you and modeled for you and impacted you spiritually, they now leave that, you're that imprint that goes on. And so not only does that happen in your immediate family and your family that's extended, it happens to the whole world if you're making a difference. And so I realized that we didn't have to write a letter. It's already out there. And we have the ultimate letter that Jesus wrote as a love letter. So that's kind of the way I looked at it. I think I kind of grieved through the process of him losing his mind. And so by the time it actually happened that he took that last breath, and I actually wasn't in the room because I'd gone to a wedding, and because we knew it was probably within hours, but it wound up being minutes, and I didn't know, and I had left. And so then I get the call. I'd driven about 30 miles away, and so by the time I got back, everybody had gathered, and so I was the last one to walk in, and he's just kind of curled up, and he'd kind of slept in the fetal position. He'd gotten really small. He probably only weighed 140 or 50 pounds. Because you don't eat at the end. But as he laid there, now there was this peace that was there, and so we're on. And there were tears shed, but then we just started telling stories, and so for like an hour, he's just laying there on his bed, and we're all around him, piled into this little bitty room in this Alzheimer's unit that he crossed over in, and we just started telling stories, and we'd cry a little bit, and then we would laugh, a lot. And somebody else would talk, and then Mom would say something, and something else would generate. And it was just a complete organic moment that our patriarch had crossed over. And it was so special because we had all, I felt like, had grieved that part of night and realizing he was leaving already. And now we were preparing for where we go from here. And so we wouldn't even talk there about funerals and all that stuff. That came later. But it was just such a sweet moment for us, as all his sons and his daughter, and then a lot of the grandkids are there. So it was just, I felt like for me, the moment I had probably about a week after the funeral, we went to Gulf Shores, and I was tired, and we had to do podcasts to try to, Jason and I missed some because we were dealing with all that, but then we kind of wanted a tribute for him here. And this song that I've heard many times before, and I don't even remember the name of it, but it's about a guy who realizes, I think his mom is dying. And so this song comes on the radio, and I'm listening to it, and I had heard it many times before, and then it's just one of those things that just like penetrates. It's just me driving in the truck, and I mean, I just wept, and it was the first time I had really cried like that, because I realized, okay, he really is not going to be here for a while, and it's going to take a minute. So I needed that. It was good for me. And you realize anytime you grieve, you don't grieve like the rest of men with no hope, but it's good. It's a good thing. I mean, Jesus cried too for a reason. And so I feel like now everything has kind of been, now we talk about him almost every podcast, something comes up. And Maddie's even introduced like a little segment, what would Phil say? Because it'll come up, like it'll be some saying or something else. And so it's like it just continues on, the legacy, which is a cool thing.
Hey guys, real quick. I know a lot of you guys struggle with getting a consistent workout routine. So wherever you get to, whether that's the Globo gym or your home gym or even like a parking lot somewhere, you get there and then you don't know what to do. You get there and you're just like, well, what in the world am I supposed to do today? And you just kind of meander around, and maybe you're trying to get ready for like a mountain hunt in the fall, or you've got a mud race coming up, or you just want to be generally a strong and fit dude for normal everyday life, but you don't have a program that's tailored for you. I want you guys to stop wasting time at the gym or wherever you're working out and just settling for that same old routine that you've always done. It's time for you to get a guide that will help you reach your fitness goals. And that's why I want to introduce you to my friends over at Mountain Tough. Mountain Tough is a fitness and mental toughness app developed by military special operators and mountain hunters that's becoming a global movement for building mentally tough athletes on and off the mountain. So Mountain Tough is a native app ready to be downloaded on all platforms. So that includes iPhone, Android, Apple TV, and Roku. Once you sign up and download the app or access the website, you immediately have access to literally hundreds of exercise programs and thousands of workout videos. Thousands, okay? That includes structured hybrid strength and endurance programs, daily workouts, the full exercise library, mental toughness training, prehab and rehab, the Mountain Tough community and accountability, and a bunch of other stuff. And guys, you can use it all on the go, online or offline, no matter where you decide to train. Just getting started? No problem. They've got programs for beginners. Have minimal gear or no gear? All good. They have minimal gear and bodyweight programs. Wanting to get into or maintain elite level fitness like me? They've got you covered with programs for top tier athletes too. And guys, for a limited time, Mountain Tough is extending Undaunted Lifers like you an incredible offer. Go to mountaintough.com. That's MTNtough.com and enter the code Kyle when you sign up for a monthly plan to receive your first month free after your 14-day free trial. So for guys that aren't good at math, that is 6 weeks free to make sure this app is for you, and I'm sure it will be. That is 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app in the world. Stop wasting time. It's time to get real fitness results and let my friends at Mountain Tough guide the way. Again, go to MTN Tough. That's mountaintough.com, promo code Kyle. Well, and you mentioned that he was a great encourager, and maybe people don't like, if you watch the show or you watch any of his hunting videos or something like that, you wouldn't maybe necessarily pick up on that.
That's right.
But I remember when we were sitting across from each other at this exact table, this would have been, I guess, 2 years ago when Uncanceled had just released 3 years ago.
Yep.
And so we did the Unashamed podcast, and then Phil hung around afterwards for us to do an in-person interview. And at the end, he goes, "We in this together, brothers." And he gave me some knuckles across the table, and I was like, okay, that was super cool. And then all the cameras turn off and all that. And so I stand up and I'm getting ready to leave. He stands up from his chair, puts his headphones down, stands up from his chair, walks around, and he gets right in, not in my face, but he was right in front of me, and he just goes, "No matter what, you just keep going. Like, you were built for this. Like, men need you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm with you." And like, it's so,
it touches you, right?
Yeah, it's such an impactful thing because you were talking in your sermon yesterday. We're in Joshua 24.
Yep.
And I wrote it down, but I remember what you said. But, it's that part in Joshua 24 where it's, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Yep. And that's a decision that you make as the head of the household, right? You get to make that decision. And then there's only two options for men. You are either the spiritual thermostat or you're the spiritual thermometer.
Yep.
There's not a third option, right? So I try to encourage guys to be the thermostat. And so one thing that I had done, years ago, I realized, man, I'm not really reading the Bible. I'm reading a lot of books for the podcast, but I'm not reading the Bible. So that's why I came up with the forging table. I just totally stole the Unashamed idea where it's like, let's just get guys around a table and let's talk about the Bible. Let's just work our way through. It's had a huge impact. Then Joby and I started the Daily Blade. And so that's just, 5 minutes, Monday through Friday, nuggets for like just guys. They're on their way to the work site. They're on their way to go hunt. They're on their way to the gym, and they just need 5 minutes of Bible to give them some sort of.
Which is so good, by the way. I want to say that to your audience too, because because I've watched them too. And it's the long format you do is important, and the people that listen to you, same with us, it's important to have long content because you're diving in.
Right.
But those short nuggets are great too, because we're all busy,
right,
but we need it. And a nugget can be just as powerful as, an hour or 2 hour podcast too. So
when it's giving you a taste. And so like, that's the whole thing is like, we're not conjugating Greek verbs. We're not digging into deep theology. It's like, we got 5 minutes, right? Like this is locker room style. Like we got to go back out and play the second half kind of a thing. And so when Phil died, I was at a concert at the time. And so, kind of, I knew it was coming, but it was still shocking when we got the news on that Sunday afternoon. And so one of the first things I thought of, because I was thinking about, how do I talk to my audience about this? How do I honor Phil on my show and his legacy and his impact on me? And I just kept coming back to the same thing, which pertained to the Bible over my right shoulder, which was whether we were in the studio, whether we were in his living room, whether we were just walking around the duck shop or whatever, his Bible was either in his hands, open in his lap or on the table in front of him, or within arm's reach.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was thinking, like, if I'm waiting in some waiting room somewhere and all that, what do? I do what every American apparently is obligated to do, which is I pull my phone out and I just start doom scrolling, right?
Yeah,
so I'm either scrolling social media or doing email or responding to text messages. And so kind of long story short, there's a Bible binding company, like third generation in Oklahoma City, called Ace Book Binding. And they will take an old, tattered, beat up Bible that's fallen to pieces, and they will put like a new cover on it, and they do everything custom. You can put as many little ribbons in it as you want. And so what I ended up doing is I was like, I'm going to make a Bible that just goes everywhere with me. Okay. And I was like, and in my head, I'm like, okay, it can't be like, because my favorite Bible is the ESV Study Bible. I think it's spectacular by Crossway. Good. But it's kind of big, it's bulky, and if you're walking around with that everywhere, it's like, it's like you're carrying a cinder block everywhere. And so it's like, I
like
need
this one.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Which is my study Bible and I use it on the podcast, but I don't even use it to preach because it's, I have to haul it all over on Sundays.
Exactly.
I have a small one.
Yeah, a different one.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting this one done. And so like, everything Undaunted.Life is, black and blue. And so I got the blue ribbons. I got the Undaunted logo. You won't be able to see it on camera, but maybe you can, but we can't zoom in or whatever. And got my name on it. But the most important thing to me was getting the gospel arrows and symbols, and I got that there on the side of the Bible. And so again, that's the reason why I wanted to do this, is because, and I've already done this, sitting in a waiting room, I'm going to have to set my Bible down to pull my phone out, right? So it's like an extra thing in my brain.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think about Phil, and I think about his legacy, and it's a down arrow. Jesus was sent to this earth.
That's
then
right.
It's a cross. He died on a cross for our sins. Then there's an empty tomb because he rose from it. Then there's an up arrow because he ascended to heaven, and the only thing we're waiting for is on the last symbol, which is the down arrow, where he comes to capture his bride, right? To gather up his bride. And so if someone's like, hey, because there's 20 people in a waiting room, you're reading a book. Oh, it's not just a book. It's a Bible, right? It's a love letter, as you called it. It's going to lead to discussions. It's going to lead to Bible discussions. And I talked about this recently on my show, Al. The guy with the highest IQ on the planet is a doctor from South Korea. He came out on Twitter or X, and he said, as the person with the highest IQ, the smartest person on the planet, I believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and all these types of things.
That's so awesome.
And so my initial reaction was, wow, that's so awesome. And then my next reaction was, so, okay, you're really, really smart, and you came to the same conclusion that dumb people come to.
Right.
And so Phil, very, very smart man, but kind of an aw-shucksy, matter-of-fact, country wisdom type of a guy.
Exactly.
And the people he led to Christ with 5 symbols.
That's right.
Right? And again, the Holy Spirit's doing its work and all that. And, Phil would have never taken credit for doing that. But yeah, people that just pull up on the property, and he shares Christ with them in a truncated form. And it's the encouragement of, you don't have to be a theologian to share the truth in your life. And also, you don't have to have an extreme story like Phil of substance abuse and physical abuse and all the different, horrible things. You could have, realized you're a wretched, black-hearted sinner as an 8-year-old going through Awana, and it still reacts the same in terms of the heavenlies.
You know what's ironic, Kyle, is that he the reason he lived out where he lived, which you've been there, and 30 miles out of town, on the river, literally through miles and miles and miles of no houses or anything, because it's all the property out there belongs to the mill here, and so it's all tree cutting and forest and all that, and so there's this buffer of no people. And so the reason he did that in 1976, at this time he's a 1-year-old Christian, is because he didn't think he was strong enough to remain a Christian. And he was running from old buddies, old pals, old drinking buddies, and he didn't want to be found. And so he, it's kind of like when Paul, first got struck down the road to Damascus, he just briefly mentions it in Galatians that he spent 3 years in the Arabian desert. I mean, like, you don't think about it. You think he just immediately went into being Paul, Saul to Paul.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He removed himself at first. He needed some alone time with him and God. And that's what happened with Dad. And it was interesting because I don't think he ever saw himself as being a person who would then be such an impactor of people, because he removed himself at first just to get away from Satan and sin. And although you never, it's still going to be there, and which is what he realized. But he did that for a purpose. But it was almost like it was a John the Baptist moment, because, John was out preaching in the wilderness, and, the kingdom is coming, Jesus is near, pointing people to Jesus, and people would go find him. And that's exactly what happened with Dad. They just started driving down there, and they just started turning themselves in. And like you said, he was always ready and willing. And someone would walk in the door, and it'd be just like you or anybody else. And you had the advantage because I'd already told him about you before you got there. But somebody just shows up, he would say, "All right, boys, come on in there. What we got here? Everybody's got a story. Tell me yours."
Yeah.
And then 2 or 3 old guys would walk in, and it'd just be some old hunters or somebody that's down the river. Maybe their truck had broke down or whatever. And, "Come in here, boys. Tell me your story." And so they'd be like, "Well, Mr. Phil," and they start talking. Then he'd just go right into it. He said, "It sounds like to me you boys been doing a little cutting up, a little messing up around here. Is that old gal that you're with there, you getting in her britches?" I mean, he just had a way of disarming people almost immediately, and they would listen. It's almost like they weren't offended. I mean, I never did it though. I mean, I was a pastor. My mindset was, way different than Dad, but he just did it. And he felt like if the Almighty sent him down here, he sent him down here for a reason. And so that's the way he lived for 50 years. And so, which I never knew the part about him encouraging you. And I'm so glad to hear that, because the reason he did that is I told him about what you do. And so he knew you meant something to me, and that's why you were there. And so he took that to heart. And that's the part that people never really saw about Dad, that side of him, which he always had, which was so good, because he loved people who had dreams of impacting for the kingdom. And he always wanted to encourage that. And so he had his own style and his own way, but he knew that other people are different and they have a different way of doing it. And so your style is different than his, and that's the beauty of the kingdom. We all have a different approach.
Well, and what Phil's done and what you've seen, what all of the people have seen, and anyone listening to this that's doing something for the kingdom, you're at the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
Okay. So when the flaming darts of the enemy come your way, they either hit you or go past your shield first.
That's right.
And so when you get an encouragement like that, because I've always been the type of guy, I need some acknowledgement. I need a pat on the head. I don't need a whole lot.
Yeah.
A little bit of encouragement or a little attaboy, that'll sustain me for a very, very long time.
And we all need some, yeah.
Right. But you have these ups and downs in your personal life. You have these ups and downs in your ministry.
Yep.
I told you, you and Lisa in the car, to where it's like, I'm the type of guy where I could get 100 comments in a row that are just positive and uplifting, and man, this is the impact your ministry's had on me and all these types of things. And then there's that one doofus that, like, he'll say something and I'll just be like, oh yeah. And then I remember this might be it could be like a Russian bot. It may not even be a person.
That's right.
It's just somebody flaming online. It's not something that they would say to me if we were stuck in an elevator or something like that. But I always go back to that encouragement from your dad.
Yeah.
And because it was completely unexpected, because at that point he had already helped me before I went and spoke at Lewisburg Prison.
Yep.
Because I knew he'd spoken in Angola, and I was like, hey, give me something to say to these guys. And I just used his line directly. It's like, you can be under lock and key, but you can still be free.
That's it.
And I mean, you could hear people in the room go, ooh. Like these are men that are, some of them locked up for life, and they're never going to leave the inside of Lewisburg Prison. And it was like, that was when everything else I said basically went to the back burner, and it was like, you can be under lock and key, but you can still be free. But that encouragement that he gave me that day has just sustained me for so long, and I can continue going back to that as a signpost. But we're winding to a close here because behind the scenes, we're about to do Unashamed and all that. So, you guys are going to be able to check that out here soon. But let's just put a bow on that in terms of the Robertson legacy that has been kind of spearheaded by Phil, and now as it transfers officially to you as the new patriarch and the rest of the four sons. When everybody's time is done, when the four brothers' time is done, all that from Phil through you, what do you want the legacy of the Robertson family to be? What do you want the shadow that is being cast? What do you want that to be reflective of?
Well, I think you brought up Angola. I think what we said at his crossover, we called it a crossover rather than a passing away, even though, I use it's not that I don't like the word, but it's the idea is because it's ongoing. It's just a crossover awaiting the resurrection. And Dad said that many times, the resurrection looms large the older I get, and he's right. But he was buried in a casket built in Angola, in that prison, the same one he talked to, a lot of people turned their hearts over to the Lord because of his message. And because Franklin Graham had told him that his dad, Billy Graham, had been buried in a casket built in Angola. Most people don't know they built them there, and I don't know that they necessarily sell them. Probably since I've talked about this, there may be a run on them. But the reason they build them, in Angola, is because people go there to die. Most of our life imprisonments in Louisiana are all there, and so they're never going to leave there. The boxes there built there, and they go in the ground there because a lot of times they outlive family and nobody comes to get them. And so people don't realize that. They have a huge cemetery full of people in Angola. And so you're at the end of your life there when you go in there. And for some reason, for some people, they were in there 40, 50 years. And so Billy Graham wanted to be, once he found out when he went and spoke there that they built caskets, he wanted one for him to be. And so he got one, and Franklin has ordered one for himself, and he told Dad the story. And I didn't even know Dad remembered the story. And then 6 months before he died, he tells Mom to tell me, reach out to those Angola folks and get me one of them Billy Graham caskets. That's what he got. And which I thought was, what a thing to say, that for a man who spent his life helping people find freedom, no matter what, no matter where, would want to be buried in that box. And it was a beautiful casket. But as I walked in that day and I saw it, and knowing we were going to speak, I realized, and I had not realized this for some reason, that we happened to be in the same room because we were in our little small room so we could broadcast the funeral later, the same room he was baptized in, about 40 feet from where the casket now was with his dead body in it, awaiting the resurrection. And I thought, it just hit me in the moment, watching that sort of juxtaposed thing, that, he died, but he really died 40 feet behind there 50 years ago.
That's right.
And so the idea of forever. And so I think that spoke to me the biggest message is now I'm 60. And so the resurrection is looming large for me. I told Mom and Si, I said, now, look, the way this works, because I love baseball, I don't know which one of you guys are at the plate, but you're at the plate, and the other one's on deck, but I'm in the hole.
Yeah.
I'm on the top step of the dugout, you realize, and that's the way it should be because I'm the oldest brother. So I want to have that same impact that someone will say, Al, he was good with the Bible. He helped people. He was willing to talk about his faults. He and Lisa were willing to really put themselves out there for folks. And I want them having the same discussion, that somehow it was bigger, and that my death, which now for me was, 42 years ago, when I was 18 years old, that then started something that will never end. And so I feel like my brothers are the same way. We all have a different approach and a different way of doing it, but we all work in concert together with the idea of, we want people to understand that the kingdom is here for people. And it can be life-changing. And so, we have our, I don't know, this will probably air after it happens, but we're having our Duck Commander Sunday here, which is Corey and Bella sort of reviving something we did years ago as an outreach at our church. We'd wear camo, and Dad would usually speak. And so they're doing it this year to honor Dad and just invite people to get to come. Maybe they didn't get to come to pay their respects, so it's a way to do that. And they're doing it here at Duck Commander headquarters. But I mean, it's the same message that continues on. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, I love what you said about the Korean smartest guy in the world, because you're right. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how dumb you are. It matters how open you are.
That's right.
And that's where the impact changes you. And for people who are not open yet, they're waiting for that moment to be open. And you have an opportunity. God wants everyone to come to repentance. And so the beauty of it is you may not even know you're the next fireball person that's going to be there, but something will happen in your life and you're like, I realize now my purpose. And that happens for us at different times. It doesn't always happen early. Sometimes it happens later. So that's the legacy I want to leave. I want my children and my grandchildren to say those similar things about me. They'll be different than they say about my dad, but there'll be something that says we want to have that continue on. So that's what I hope for.
It's a legacy of being kingdom focused, and you're continuing the journey on. So absolutely. Al, I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, brother. Always a pleasure.
There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed Al's return appearance to the show. But before we let you go, we are going to do a quick resilience boost. At Undaunted.Life, our mission is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. So I've got a link to Al and his wife Lisa's website. That's where you can go for all of their ministry work that they do. The Duck Commander website, the Unashamed podcast, where you can check out all their episodes, including my appearances on their episodes. And then a copy of Al's book, Getting Past Guilt, Embracing God's Forgiveness. And then in terms of the saturated stuff, I've got the schedule of events, the Church of 1122 website, the church online link, the YouTube channel, and their Facebook. So if you want to be a part of Saturated, if you want to participate in it, I would highly, highly, highly suggest you guys do that. If you're listening to this on time, it starts tomorrow, starts on Wednesday. So get in there, make sure you've got your links, make sure you're ready to go. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.